And when they get back from camp, at that point, if you want to toss it, toss it. But we'll have this for each and every one of you, just as a guide, as a resource to help you plan and prepare for camp accordingly. But first thing, if you go to page 3, just on the first page of your packet, why we really have camp. Camp really is, if you're familiar with Stonegate and how we do things, one of our core values is a next generational church, and we really want to emphasize and invest in our kids ministry, our youth ministry, and we put a lot of leader capital as far as and even as far as resources and finances into investing in these youth and children. And camp is our biggest outreach of the year. And so we take a lot of kids and youth to camp because the reason why is we see Jesus work through camp each and every year, whether it's salvation, whether it's burdens being lifted or clarity being provided, or whatever the case may be. We see God work at camp through our students. And so we will never get rid of it as long as I'm still here because we see God work in great and powerful ways through camp. And so camp might look a bit different this year than in years past. So really the last 8 years we've gone to Gloria, New Mexico up by Santa Fe. This year we're not. We're going to go to Dallas this year instead. And so with that comes some unique differences. It might look different in this way or in that way. But in the grand picture of what camp is, what we try to accomplish, it will not change. And again, that's all about making most of the gospel, magnifying Jesus, and also having a lot of fun. And so if you know about Santa Fe, there's not a whole lot there beyond just lovely mountains, and it's very beautiful, but it's very much secluded. Dallas, it's the opposite. It's hey, it's not really as pretty as Santa Fe, but there's a lot to do there. And so we'll have one night, we'll discuss this more, we'll have one night, Monday night, we'll be at this, they call it Epic Water Park, and it is pretty epic, the name fits. We have rented that whole place out. There's 9 water slides. One goes vertical. I don't know how that happens, but it's going to work. So we're going to do things like that might look different. But again, the whole idea is we do camp because camp is it's life-changing and it's fun. So really, here's your role, though. As a parent or a guardian, when it comes to packing, understand that it's not hot today, but it's going to be Texas in June. It's going to be very, very hot. So with that comes bring a lot of sunscreen, and also pack a reusable water bottle. Not like a plastic Ozarka, but like a Nalgene, you know what I mean? You can fill water up in it throughout the week because we're going to have a lot of water stations available because it's going to be a lot of hot. So bring a water bottle, and we'll discuss this more. But as a parent, just know what to look for and what to prepare for. The big things for me, sunscreen and water. Those are 2 really, really big ones. But if you turn the page, go to page 5. So this is the morning of. So load out when you arrive on campus. Where do you go? What will that look like? And how to navigate that. So there should be a little graphic that looks like this behind me in your booklet. Okay, what that means, I'll kind of walk you through what each location is, where to go for each thing, and when you arrive, where should you park, where should you drop off your kiddos, whatever your plan is that morning, here's what you do. Okay, so if you're going to drop off your student, you're not going to stick around, you're going to just hey, have fun, I'll see you on Friday, whatever. If that's you, that was my parents too. Hey, just get out, you're on your own now. If that's you, God bless you, you will you'll drive in where that green arrow is that says enter. You'll drive in the parking lot through there, and you'll hang a left, and your first parking lot on your left, you'll drive down that parking lot, and in that section, drop your kiddos off, and then hang another left and exit out that same way. So green arrow, enter in, hang a left, drop off kiddos, hey, have fun, hang a left, exit out, and off you go. That's if you're dropping off, okay? If you want to hang around and hey, Johnny, let's maybe pray together or something, if you want to do that, stay on Wadley when you're walking, when you're approaching campus. Don't go on Crowley. Stay on Wadley, drive straight, and then in that parking lot off to the very bottom left corner, enter into there, and you'll have your cars parked in that parking lot kind of off to the left side of the drop-off zone. Does that make sense? Dropping off, green arrow, red arrow, in, out. If you're hanging out and parking, stay on Wadley, enter in that way, park your car, walk around, all the things. Sound good so far? Any questions there? Okay, great. So, yes, back in the back. So they'll actually, if they're parking themselves, they'll probably park where the leaders are parking, in the back right, on the right side. That way, we want to kind of be sure, because we're having church that morning. So our goal is to kind of be out of the way from like the rest of the church congregation gathering. So if you're parking to stay, park in the leader, the SL parking on the very bottom right corner. If you're parking just temporarily, park where the parent/camper parking is, and drop off at the very front. Does that make sense? Okay. So once you are on campus, what's going to happen is you will have the camper check in at their bus. So you'll have like, hey, you are on bus 5 or whatever bus number you're on. You'll get that info before camp. You'll go to that bus, and there they'll like drop off luggage and just kind of get ready to get onto the bus to go to camp. You'll also drop off any medications that you have in that area as well. So again, meds will go to the med drop-off. Don't keep it yourself. We have a med team that handles that. And then that's all at the info table as well, like that little purple section. So head there, drop off meds, put luggage by the bus, student hops on, goes to camp. Clear as mud so far? Okay, that's the approach. Again, if you forget what your goal is, know your bus number. That's your biggest thing. Go to your bus number. There they'll check you in, and they'll give further, like, hey, if you have meds, go to the med station. Luggage stays here. They will guide you from there. But go to your bus first for additional info. Sound good? Okay. And this will all be, again, emailed to you guys after today just to refresh you. That way you don't have to, like, rely on this meeting alone for what that looks like. Okay, so one thing you should know real quick before I go back. On page 6 of your packet, there's a very important typo to be mindful of. And if you don't catch this, you'll miss camp altogether. And that is, it says Sunday, June 6th. Well, that's a Monday. So that should be June 5th. Okay, so if you don't catch that, you might miss camp. So June 5th is the check-in. We leave for camp that morning. Just make that correction. Again, we will correct that and then email that to you guys after this. But just so you know, it's June 5th, not June 6th through June 10th. And there we have the mornings. So we'll have middle school and high school leave separately. So middle school, we need you to be there at 6:15 in the morning. I know that's early, but you have a 5-hour bus ride to sleep. So get there at 6:15, begin that process, leave an hour after that at 7:15. High school, you're about an hour and a half behind middle school. So at 7:45, you will arrive for check-in. That's current 9th through 12th grade. So that's an important distinction. So camp, it's all about current grade, not what your next grade will be. So if you are a 6th grader this year, you are still 6th grade at camp. Make sense? Seniors, y'all graduate in like 5 days, but you're still in youth until August type deal. So current grade is your camp grade. So current middle school, current high school, that's your timeline to arrive. And we just want to ask, just very politely but firmly, don't be late, please. Because we don't want to have like a last minute, like, hey, where's Johnny? Is he coming? Is he going to be here? Like, just get here on time. That way there'll be no rush and no anxiety. You're ready to go to camp, and then there's no difficulty there. But middle school, again, 6:15 arrival. High school, 7:45 arrival. And then we'll do the check-in, med drop-off. All the things will happen once you're on campus present. Questions so far? We good with that? Okay. So page 7, what to pack. This is some important things. Again, with it being Texas in June, it'll be very hot. There'll be some pools as well, so just kind of be mindful of things like that. But here are some things, just some big picture things I want to discuss with all of y'all so we're all on the exact same page. Number 1, on the very top of your packet, it says your camp colors. The way that camp works is we want to have it be like a very spirit-filled, competition-filled weekend or week. Sorry. And so really, if you're in sixth grade, your color is blue. So pack all kinds of blue things: blue headbands, blue socks, blue face paint, whatever you want to bring. Make it blue, and that way it's spirit, it's fun. If you're in seventh grade, your color is orange. Eighth grade, you're purple. Ninth grade, you're green. 10th is pink, 11th is red, and 12th is yellow. Okay, so whatever color you are, bring a lot of that. And just, again, have fun with it, go crazy with it. The more spirit you have, the more fun it's going to be. Just kind of make that your lens. Okay, I want to pack all these, shorts, T-shirts, but if it's your color, it's even better. Does that make sense? Okay. So, things to keep in mind when it comes to activities like pool time or things that might potentially result in some potential clothing discussions. We've found it best to kind of have a very simple yet clear mentality with that. So we want to say yes to the 3 C's for all clothing, and that is clean, comfortable, and conservative. Okay, so if it's clean, comfy, conservative, yes, bring it. That's awesome. And then no to the 3 B's, and that is breast, belly, and bottom. Okay, we want the 3 B's covered up and the 3 C's applied. So I know that's probably more in the female like attire more than the guys in a lot of ways. So here's what I'm saying about this. So we don't really want any bikinis at camp at the pool. If that's all you have, just put a shirt on or some shorts over it just to cover up. I understand that it might be hard if we all at the same time rush to Target for a one-piece suit. They might sell out. I acknowledge that. So if you cannot find a one-piece suit that fully covers all the areas, I get it. Just cover up with additional clothing, if that makes sense. Like shirts, shorts, just to be mindful, because we want to be sure we protect both the student and those around the student when it comes to, again, just objectifying. We know how guys and girls' brains work. Let's be mindful of that. Not to be legalistic, but just to protect them, if that makes sense. So when it comes to water sports, guys can have their shirts off in the pool or in the pool area, but that's it. So if you're playing football, keep your shirt on, okay? You don't need to take your shirt off for that. Keep your shirt on. If you're swimming, that's different, but other than that, shirts on for guys at all times. Just, again, to be above reproach and mindful of things like that. Questions there? Is that fair? Okay, awesome. So with that being said, when it comes to packing, this will be very much like what you might imagine what a campground would look like. It's a lot of cabins with 10 to 15 bunks per room. So when you think about packing, think twin size bed size, for mattress. If that means sleeping bag, bring that. If you're more of a sheets kind of person, bring sheets as well. It doesn't matter to me. But just bring things that would fit a twin size mattress, and just think, bunk bed, twin size type of bedding. So bring things that would fit that size. Bring towels, bring pillows, shampoo, soap, all the things. Again, that's all in your packing list. Be mindful of that. But my big thing is we will not allow students to have their cell phones with them at camp. And so usually, I know it's 2022, so their phone is their Bible in many ways. At camp, it won't be, okay? So be mindful of that. So we want to encourage, hey, bring an actual old-fashioned book of the Bible with you and read that from that week. So Bible is highly encouraged. Also sunscreen, water bottles, all those things on your sheet there. That will be what you want to be mindful of when you're packing. Okay. Any packing questions so far? We good? Okay. Keep in mind, this always is kind of awkward to say, but it's important to say. We acknowledge that this is a very big evangelistic week for us, meaning a lot of unchurched students will come to camp with us. And that could bring on some unchurched type of problems, meaning drugs, weapons, things like that. we are obviously against all those things. So don't bring drugs, don't bring weapons, and we will have drug dogs on campus the morning of to, to sniff out each bag, just so you know. And if we find things that shouldn't be there, you will not go to camp. And if we find things at camp that shouldn't be there, you'll be sent home from camp. Is that clear? And we hate doing that, but again, if you don't have rules, it's the wild, wild west, and then weird things happen. So we got to be mindful of that. But just help us as you help your student pack. Just what's allowed, what's not allowed. Just let that guide you, and then there'll be no issues. Is that fair so far? We good? Okay. And again, if you have any questions, I know it's kind of like a big room right now. You may not want to ask anything. There'll be a Q&A at the end to come ask me directly. Just be mindful of that. Okay, so page 8. Turn the page real quick. Yes, Summer. Stairs, what do you mean? You know, honestly, are there stairs in I don't there might be in some. I think one has stairs. Most of them do not. Good question though. Thank you, Brian and Charlotte, for answering that. Okay, so on page 8, very top, there's a money section. Okay, in years past at Glorietta, there was a very big, fully stocked inventory of Glorietta sweatshirts, Glorietta swag, all the things. They don't have that this year. They have what they call a canteen, but think like Little League baseball concession stand. I mean, it'll be like, waters, Gatorade, nachos, snacks, candy. That's about it. So there's no attire, there's no sweatshirts, there's no shirts, none of that. So what I'm getting at is really, if you bring $20, that's plenty. You don't need to bring 50. No Ben Franklin's. Like that's not being necessary, because if you're buying like a lot of candy, then that's a different problem. But you won't need it. So they're very cheap snacks, drinks, that type of thing. So if you want to have money for things like that, you can bring some cash. I would encourage, again, if it's your student, just keep it in a safe place. I know for me, when I was in high school, middle school, I lost everything. So I never brought candy to camp because I wouldn't come back with it. And I didn't spend it, I just lost it. And so just be mindful that that's an option for you, but you don't need much, and just keep it secured when you're not using it. That way you don't lose it or doesn't get stolen, things like that, okay? So that's an option, but you don't need much. Is that good? Okay, so medication. Again, this is also important to know. As I said earlier, we want to encourage all students, and I don't really care what it is, to turn their meds into the medical team and don't keep them yourselves. We will not allow any student or camper to have their own meds with them. The reason why is because leaders cannot diagnose or keep track of every camper's medical needs, but our med team does know that. So we'll have like different, at meal times, morning medications, evening meds, at breakfast and at dinner. They will keep track of all of that. They'll monitor that. But so we're having all students turn their meds into the med team. And we're also telling all leaders to not give out any medications to campers either. Things like Tylenol or Advil. It might seem silly, but again, some campers can't have Tylenol or Advil or whatever the case may be, and a leader can't know all those info. So we're saying to all leaders, don't hand out, Tylenol to kids. It might seem harmless, but it could be a problem. But again, campers turn in all meds, and leaders will just keep their meds if they want to with themselves, but not give out to anybody else. Okay, just to keep things simple and to avoid things getting weird or confusing, all that. So when you arrive on campus Sunday morning, go to the med table, drop off your meds. They'll take it from there, load it to camp, and they'll divvy it out each day at camp for your camper to keep track of that. That way nothing gets missed and all those things. With that being said, all of that medical info is done through CampDoc when you signed up. Meaning, if you've not yet fully signed up for camp yet, we need that done like when you leave today probably. Just again, lovingly encouraging you, please finish signing up. That way we know who needs what and who has each meds, all that. That's all done through Camp Doc. There's also back in the back some laptops to get that done today if you want to get that done when you leave. That's here on site as well. But that's all done through Camp Doc, meaning make sure that is up to date before you leave for camp to track all that. Okay? We good? All right. So page 9, camp rules and policies. Again, camp is fun. We don't want to make it not fun, but without the proper rules, camp can be not fun very quick. And there might be a few things that seem kind of weird, like, really, that's a rule? And you'll see why in a bit. First one's pretty obvious. When you're at camp, you can't leave camp. So just know, parents, when they arrive on Sunday, they're there the entire week, and they will not leave unless they all leave together on Monday to the water park on the exact same bus they arrived on Sunday. Other than that, we are at camp all week long. No one's going to leave. We're not going anywhere. We're staying there. There'll be a strict curfew at 11 a.m. I wish. 11 p.m. And then at that point, lights are out. They're in beds, going to sleep, and all that. Bullet point 3, again, pretty obvious. No drugs, tobacco, alcohol, firearms, knives, any of that, as well as drugs. I mean, none of that is allowed, so just don't pack that. And again, the 4th point, back to the packing list. Yes to the 3 C's, no to the 3 B's when it comes to things to wear, all of that. But go down to the 3rd to the last bullet point. This one usually is like, really, that's a rule, where it says no pranks or practical jokes. That might sound harmless, like, really, but that's fun. But what happens is if I prank you, what will you then do back to me? You'll like one up me, right? So I prank you, you one up me, then I one up you. You see it's back and forth, back and forth. Well, eventually in that one up process, you go way too far, and then what might feel like an innocent, harmless prank can ruin camp for somebody. And so we make it clear on the first night, hey, there are no practical jokes. There are no things like that, because what might seem harmless to you, it's not to somebody else. And so not to be like this killjoy, but again, being mindful of every camper we have, we're going to just say, hey, no joking, no pranking. Let's have fun together in appropriate ways. And that way, feelings don't get hurt, things don't get misconstrued, things like that. And so as a parent, if you wouldn't mind, just help us when you go home prior to camp. Maybe just kind of pitch these things like, hey, when you're at camp, here's how you behave. Here's what you don't do. Like, that'll help us when we get there. They're ready to go. They kind of know what to expect, what not to do. And again, at that point, it'll be a great week at camp. No hard feelings, that type of thing. But that's all there. Again, no theft is tolerated, no fighting, bullying. Things that you'd expect, we will uphold. And again, if things get broken on this list, it might result in sending kids home, just so you know that. We don't want to do that, so help us not have to do that, is what I will say. But that's all the rules there. And then on page 10, turn the page. Again, kind of more in depth, cell phone policy. Campers don't have them with them. Now, they can bring it on the bus, but then we will take them up on the bus prior to arriving to camp. So that whole week, they'll be locked away in a bin, in a safe room, and then we will repass those out on Friday, heading back home when we leave camp. But from the actual campground time, so Sunday night through Friday morning, there is no cell phones for campers. Now, I know for some parents, mine did not care at all. They're like, well, I want to talk to my son or my daughter. Like, we want to encourage them, one, to have no distractions outside of camp. Not saying you are a distraction by any means, please hear me. But we want to make sure that they're focused on what's at camp in front of them, not what's at home necessarily. But if issues come up, like, hey, I've got to call my son or my daughter for this reason, please either contact your leader or your camper's small group leader or somebody at camp, or even call the front office here at the church. We'll find ways to get you in touch with your camper if that's necessary. So don't think like, hey, they're gone for 5 days, like no matter what. Like you know where they're at. They're at camp. If you need them, you can find them. But just know that we want to encourage, like, if it can wait, let it wait. If it can't, call us, and we'll arrange y'all to speak and all that. But just by and large, let's there's no cell phone use. And there's also, I'm learning, like, the older I get, I realize how far behind I am on technology. But like even like Apple Watches can function as like, texting things. So that's gone as well too. Like if you want to bring a watch, bring like an actual old school clock only kind of watch and nothing else. Reason why, again, is just to minimize distractions. Let them be present at camp with their camp group, their leaders, having fun, but also like in the Word, like reading God's Word and praying, and it makes it much more beneficial when there's less things happening. Okay, um, and I don't need to get into the whole again drugs again. We've hammered that pretty hard, but also page 11. So we had a meeting with leaders yesterday and also one more on Tuesday. So one thing that we take very seriously here at Stonegate is reporting abuse. That's like we stress that highly. And so we've already got all of our leaders trained up on if you're in group and you hear a camper say something that might hint at abuse, whether it's physically, sexually, emotionally, or whatever, they are trained to report that to staff and law enforcement, and then they'll determine if that's like, okay, yeah, we got to report this further, or no, it's okay. But that being said, just know that if something happens at camp, or maybe something is said, or it's come to light, it might result in some phone calls to gather more info on like, hey, this was mentioned in small group. What do you know about this? Like, can you gather more info? Like, again, we don't want to minimize what that can lead to and become. So as a parent, just know that if this comes up, we might contact you. Again, not to in any way accuse, but to, again, gather more info, get the story clear, to then do the required steps necessary to resolve that. Does that make sense? So we're trained, again, like, don't ever on your own, like, leader judgment say, I think that's fine. If you question that, report it, and then we'll determine through law enforcement what the next move is, okay? But just know that that's like part of the leader training to, again, make sure that camp is handled properly and that kids are cared for the whole 9 yards. Sound fair? Questions there? Okay. So, page 12, I'll let y'all read that. There's really nothing that needs to me expand on more than what's already written there in your packet. But on page 13, so when you get back from camp, here's what I would encourage. Number one, take a day or two to sleep and just kind of like catch your breath. But also parents, I know how students operate. If you say, hey, how was camp? What'd you talk about? They'll probably say, Jesus, or whatever, So, yes, that's true. We'll mention his name a few times. But also dig in more like, okay, well, yes, that's great, but like, what about him? Like, was it something he said, or what he did, or how did it speak to you? We want you to kind of, when you get home, reinforce these things, ask them questions, have them talk about it. Because again, the more they like reiterate it, the more it sticks in their brain, and then we see heart change come from just showering this over them over and over again. So when they get home, ask clarifying questions, be involved in what happened. And then also, as a parent, please, youth happens weekly, not once a year at camp. So if you see like, man, my kid had a great week at camp, I want to be part of this year round. Please, like, get involved, serve, connect with us. We hope that camp is a catalyst that gets not only campers, but also adults involved in youth to serve and give back and lead and keep this momentum going throughout the year towards next year's camp. So if that's you and you want to get involved, please holler at me. We got a spot for you, I can promise you that. But there is some things to do after camp. And we'll have once a week programming this summer right in this room on Wednesday nights from 7 to 9. And that's all 6th grade through 12th grade students, Wednesday nights all together. Have them come to this. Like, help them stay connected to the church after camp, if that makes sense. And you as well as parents too. Please hop in, connect, be part of this with us, not only at camp but after camp as well. So that's really, I know that's a quick little run through of the packet. Are there any large group questions right now that I did not discuss that you're still unsure about? Yes, ma'am. Great question. So did y'all hear that? What she asked? She asked, "Will we be using the Where's Waldo photo program?" The answer is no. Last year, you might remember, we did not because we had to wear masks last year, which was a mess. But with the mask on, you can't really see whose face is what, you know. But we realized through last year, we had a big, massive photo dump after camp. Just like, hey, here's a link to all camp photos. We'll do that again as well this year. So we'll have like pictures. There'll be a nightly newsletter. I will say this. So every day there'll be a, hey, what happened at camp this evening? We taught these things. We did these activities. So you know like what's going on. But we will not have actual photos until after camp, and we will email each parent like, hey, here's the link. Click on this. Scroll through all of them. You can download those with your kids in them, all of that. But that'll be done in an email after camp is done. Great question. Other questions? Yes. Yes, you can. So we will, I don't know if they're live streamed this year, but we will record them. And we will also, she asked, will there be live stream teaching, by the way? The answer is not to live stream, but they are recorded. And we will also probably clip like a minute or so of each teaching and put on Instagram. Like, hey, we discussed big picture this topic. That'll kind of like tease each message. But then when we get back from camp, they will, again, same idea. They will upload that to our Stonegate Youth YouTube channel to watch the entire message from start to finish. Okay? Another great question. Yes, sir. Correct. So if they were in sixth grade in 21, 22, they're that same grade at camp. We will bump up grades in August when school begins again next year. Great question. Anything else? Yes, back in the back. Don't leave yet. We'll make sure that our camp director knows that. We do things like that, but we want to we want to know that that's happening first. So don't leave yet. We'll make sure our director talks to you, gets that ironed out, and then we'll make that happen. Great. Yes, ma'am. They can. We do ask a few things. Number one, don't bring anything that has like peanuts in them for allergies and such. And also bring things that are non perishable. So don't bring like strawberries. That might get gross by Wednesday, you know. But like a granola bar, sure, that's great. So that is allowed. Yes. Another great question. Yes, ma'am. Not really. She asked, "Is there a theme night?" There really isn't. I'm trying to think. So we have a late night activity each night at camp. Sunday night's a silent disco, which is always a riot to watch. Do you know what that is, by the way? What a disco is, but it's silent. It's all done through headphones. So like they're all like jamming out, but you hear nothing. It's crazy. So that's the first night, and then Monday's the water park. So again, just like water clothing. Uh, there'll be a magician on site for Tuesday night, just little card tricks and such. And then there'll be a worship night Wednesday, and then packing up, ready to leave Thursday night. So there's really no theme on each day. Again, just pack clothes that are comfortable and athletic natured. You'll be just fine. Yes, ma'am. I believe so. Yes. Yes. Great catch. Yeah. Yes. Is that a camp doc thing, Brian, Charlotte? The Ninja Warrior waiver? Okay. Anything else? Yes, back in the back. again, our goal is not to be like heavy sticklers on like you cannot until Friday. Again, if there is an issue that like is highly pressing, then yes, we'll arrange it. If we can, we also know that there is a deal called homesickness. We acknowledge that, so we'll be mindful. Like, hey, like my goal is to put the person above the policy. That makes sense. And so if it warrants it, we will arrange that. If we feel like, hey, let's rally together and hang on for another day or two, we'll do that too. But our goal is to be transparent and to be flexible from person to person. Yeah. Yes. Say it louder for me. I don't see why not. I mean, is that against the rules? Yeah, go for it. I don't use that ever, so I'm like, I don't care. But like, yeah, sure. Very, very good question. Anything else? Awesome. Well, hey, again, thanks for being here. Thank you for allowing us to have your campers for a week. Again, camp is always a great week where God works in mighty ways. I will remind you, I'll pray real quick before we dismiss. But if you don't have a packet yet, we have extras available. So on your way out, please grab one and hang on to this for at least 2 weeks. And then we'll have a great week at camp. And then we'll come back and we'll get some sleep. Sound good? Let me pray for us, and then we can get out of here and have the rest of the Sunday night for ourselves. God, thank you again just for these parents who gather here really because they want what we want, and that's to see your gospel change these students' lives and impact them and guide them. And God, I just pray from between now until camp that you will protect their homes, guard their households. God, I pray Ephesians 6 over each family here with the armor of God. God, I just pray that you will go before us, that you will allow camp to be a fun week, but God, also a week where lives are changed and legacies are rewritten all through your Son and through his gospel. So God, I pray that you will bless our efforts and we'll just see camp be a place where you move in mighty, mighty ways like only you can do. And all this is prayed in Christ's name. Amen. All right, hey, thanks again for being here. If you have questions, hey, hang tight here. Come find myself. Otherwise, you're dismissed. Have a great weekend.